Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Booked, the Hidden Gems author podcast, in which Craig Touch, myself, Roland chat some of the interesting figures and leading lights of this crazy industry we're in of writing and publishing. And today we are delighted to have a guest all the way from the Sunshine State. I think that's what they call it. Renee Garrison, who is the past president of the Florida Authors and Publishers Association. And we are delighted to have you, Renee. How are you doing?
I am well, although I think you sent some of your chilly weather to the Sunshine State because it's the rainy 45-degree state today, but we're hoping.
You can have more of it if you want.
Bless your heart. No, thanks.
Well, we are delighted to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we wouldn't be here without the man himself, Craig Touch, the owner and founder of Hidden Gems and an author himself. How are you doing today, Craig?
Doing well, but over here we are at, well, it's negative 13 Celsius, so 9 degrees Fahrenheit. So you think you're cold there. I'm not even going outside. But yeah, thanks for joining us today. We wanted to talk about book awards, but before we get into that, why don't we discuss a little bit about you as a writer and your careers, lead us into it, and how you got involved in the Writers Association and then the book awards that that you're familiar with, and then we'll sort of go in from there.
I spent 20 years as a newspaper woman. I was with the Tampa Tribune, also in Florida, and had always in the back of my mind thought about a book, a young adult book that I had hoped to write. But if you do it all day, when you get home in the evening, I know some people can do this, but I was not one of them, will sit down and compose a book. And I had foolishly thought, since I knew Associated Press style, what's to learn about a book? Well, plenty. The Chicago Manual of Style. We don't use the Associated Press. I didn't know at the beginning that Times New Roman double-spaced was what you submitted a manuscript in. It's kind of like the earth is round, the sky is blue. But when I was at Book Expo covering it in New York City one year for the Tampa Tribune, I met the current president and board members of the Florida Authors and Publishers Association. And they were immensely helpful in taking a journalist, which is vastly different from a novelist, and offering services and information and the kind of things that any aspiring author really needs to know in order to get a book published. Although that was several years back, and now with the advent of self-publishing, I think it's a bit easier, but you still need, I think one of the biggest mistakes that authors make, particularly new authors, is they don't hire a professional copy editor or a layout graphics person. Simply because Amazon says that you can do it doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it. Exactly. If you're the creative writer, hire people who understand formatting and a good cover designer and a great copy editor and a proofreader or a developmental editor. It will make your manuscript so much better in the final analysis. So they asked me to be on the board after a few years, and I was delighted to say yes.
Yeah, I mean, we totally agree. This is one of those things that we come back to all the time, is with self-publishing, you have to know your strengths. Some people can write a great blurb or do their own cover, but not everyone can. And you have to understand where your limitations are and be willing to hire out if you need to. And every author should hire an editor. That's not something that, whether you're an editor already, it doesn't mean that you can edit your own books. So that is one of those things that we always say you should do. The other things are kind of like, if you're really amazing at cover design, then sure, do your own. But, not everyone is, and that's fine. So yeah, we're definitely on the same page with that. So why don't you tell us about sort of what you know about book awards and how you got into that, I guess, world. Did you win some? Is that how it started?
Yes, that was nice.
Oh,
yes.
Congratulations.
I'm glad you said yes, because if you said no, then I'd be like, oh.
Yes. I wrote 2 young adult books, both of which won awards this was before I was on the board, with the Florida Authors and Publishers Association. We have our own book awards program. And I think many authors don't believe that their chances of winning a book are very high, or they don't understand how useful book awards can be, or worse, they're afraid of scams. None of that is true. Book awards are basically a public recognition and validation of your book, of an author's book. It's a celebration of your book's contribution to the literary world. And the best part of all about book awards is they show legitimacy to readers and shoppers. I can't stress that enough. I think the estimate today is there are between 2 and 4 million new books published annually. And with that many new voices and books on the shelves, it's really tough to convince a reader to buy yours instead of perhaps something from an author they already know and love. That's where winning or being nominated for a book award instantly gives you credibility among readers and shoppers. And sometimes small independent bookstores. I can't speak for large chains like Barnes & Noble, but if there's limited shelf space and they have a choice between a book that has an award-winning sticker on it or a new author they haven't heard of and they don't know the quality of, they will inevitably choose the book that won the award to put in their store. So I think entering book awards competitions is an incredible way to ensure that your voice is heard among all the other authors publishing books in any given year. When you win a book award, it's telling the world that not only do you have something important to say, but that literary professionals agree that your story's worth reading. So I think that gives you a tremendous advantage in the marketplace with so many other books to choose from and great authors.
That's so interesting because, you know, we spend a lot of time talking about what makes people make the decision to click buy now on a book. And often it's, you know, the relationship with the author. If you don't have a relationship with the author, if you've never heard of them before, often it's the reviews. How many reviews does this book have? How many? But then, yeah, an award, that's something completely different, isn't it?
Kind of elevates you from the rest of the pack, I think. And very often these book awards come with, they will publicize your book. Whoever is behind the awards program has a website. They will publish additional reviews. They give authors more exposure than an author potentially can do for themselves. I made some notes here just of book awards that I'm aware of. If you think that your book, there's no category for you, I will tell you the Florida Authors and Publishers Association has 38 categories.
Wow.
If you write paranormal romance, or if you write children's books, or even inspirational books, a coffee table book, we added the category coloring book because there are many adult coloring books coming onto the market, and we had so many entries that we thought, well, we also give a separate award for cover design. Anyone who tells you that you can't judge a book by the cover is lying. If you have a choice between a really great cover or the average reader, let's say not us, not anybody watching, but you know, those people that walk into a bookstore and just kind of look. The one with the most attractive cover that vies for attention, that's what they buy. But back to mine. Florida Authors and Publishers has a book awards program. The Independent Book Publishers Association, based in California, has a book awards program. The Midwest Independent Publishers Association does have a book awards program, but you have to live in the Midwest. The Florida Book Awards program, we don't care where you live, as long as the book is written in English. We've had We had a winner from Ireland, God love her. She did not want to pay the plane ticket to come collect her award at our annual conference, but we announced her with her picture. We had 2 winners from Canada. So we welcome submissions from anywhere, any country, again, as long as it's in English. There's also the Forward Indies Book Award, the Indie Reader Discovery Awards. An author could spend just a little bit of time Googling book awards programs online, and you'll be amazed at what you find, at how many are available, how many categories each one offers. No matter what the subject matter, fiction or nonfiction of your book, I guarantee you will find an awards program for which your book is eligible. I did Florida Authors and Publishers, by the way, has received many submissions from something, and I'm not endorsing this because I've never used them, but an organization called Book Award Pro, and they match books with eligible awards programs. So as opposed to the author submitting their book or the publisher submitting a book, I think there are paid plans, but there's also a free sign up with this Book Award Pro, and they submit books. I imagine there must be a fee somewhere, but in Book Award programs all over the country. So if you have a book and you're not sure where to submit it, there are groups that will find your niche and will submit it for you. So it may sound insurmountable or really difficult to do, but in truth, it's really not.
That's so. Now you mentioned that particular service might have a fee. One thing I spent a lot of time thinking about with awards is a lot of awards, to enter them, involve a fee. Is that correct?
Oh, I think they all do.
Yeah.
Ours, very often they're staggered fees though. If you enter early in the game, it's at a discounted rate. We have a graduated fee system for Florida Authors and Publishers Association. Our deadline for submissions is April 30th. So if you enter it in September, you pay less than if you wait until April 29th. But that in part, we give our winners medals and stickers to go on the cover of their books. And so it funds the cost of some of the things that we provide to the winners. Now, I think most book award programs are PDF uploads. Back when the earth was cooling, you had to submit, like 4 copies of your book because there were judges. In our particular book awards, we have 3 judges. They are professionals in the world of literature, or we have a lot of librarians. We have a lot of publishers, authors who volunteer their time. We don't pay our judges. But we get 3 sets of eyes, 3 judges on every entry. So it's not a question of, well, someone gets your book and they don't particularly like that genre. I myself judge, and I have told the Book Awards Committee, fantasy is not my thing. So if you need someone to judge fantasy, find someone else who can do it justice. You can specify as a judge what genres you will take and what you will not take. So you will get someone who is interested in what you're writing about and will give it a fair shake. But there are fees just because Submittable, for example, where you will upload a manuscript, charges fees every time. So we have to cover the cost of that. It's not as though the Book Awards program is making money, but we do need to offset the costs because most things like the Midwest Independent Publishers Association, the Florida Authors and Publishers, we're all nonprofit. So we don't make money. We just host a Book Awards program and have to cover the costs.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that having an entry fee kind of it shows one's commitment to actually putting your book forward. I think if it was free, then, you know, people would create bots to upload gazillions of things. So I think there is definite, it shows a commitment that you're in it to actually, with good faith.
And I think I would offer a caution. If an author is looking at a potential book awards program and the fee is higher than, say, $150, that would raise a flag to me, because most fees are anywhere from $100 to $200 max.
Yeah.
So if it seems like an outrageous amount, it may not be a legitimate book awards program that you would want to, you know, enter your work in. It shouldn't be profit driven. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about, because, you know, earlier you were saying that it's one of those things that helps your book stand out, which it is, right? You know, along with having a great cover, having review, you know, anything that can set you apart. If somebody's deciding between your book and another book where most things are equal, you need something that will help you stand out. And so from that perspective, I agree that probably any award that you can say that you've won will be a benefit. But I do kind of wonder whether or not, you know, most people aren't going to know those book awards, right? If you're not from Florida, you won't probably be familiar with the Florida Association. You know, there's so many of them, so you're not going to know, right? You're going to see somebody won an award, and you're going to be like, okay, well, I guess so. But I guess the question is, how do you know the legit ones aside from just sort of guessing? Because you could have a fake-ish award program that charges only $100. You know, I mean, it can't only be on price. I get emails all the time about different things, you know, scams for the most part. Not saying about book awards, but that's one category of emails that I get, where it's like, hey, you know, you could be part of this book award, and they're reaching out to me, and I'm kind of like, you know, like I get all sorts of stuff, right? Because I have a public email, so I'm on every list in the world. But the question is sort of, how would a regular author know the difference between one that's really legit and one that isn't? And how much, I guess, does it matter if you win something and people don't know that award name anyway? Does it matter, right?
I would go to the website of whatever organization is promoting a book awards program. They should have listed previous year's winners. There should be a record of who they've given awards to, good, bad, or indifferent. I would also encourage authors. Writing is such a solitary vocation. We're all at home, or the library, or Starbucks, and I think being involved with some type of writers group is very helpful, because very often that is where you will be steered to the legitimate programs to enter. Operating in a vacuum can be tricky, but if you're part of a writers group and other people have entered their book in a writing award, or you've Googled book awards programs and you don't see any negative feedback or comments, or this is a horrible organization, this is a scam, I'm so sorry I did this, writer beware. You have to do your homework. It's like anything, you know, you wouldn't get a mortgage from the first name that crossed your path. So I think other writers can be a wealth of information. Writing conferences are the best. Go where the writers are. Go where the publishers are. There are people there that have tremendous information, and most are willing to share. I've only found once in my professional career a really annoying woman. I was asking about Oh, I'd love to name her, but I won't. I was asking about literary agents. And I was it was a dinner that was hosted by Disney Publishing. So there were some big name authors there. I met Stan Lee before he died.
Oh, nice.
Sweet little man. And this one woman, when I mentioned that I was in the midst of writing a young adult book, I remember her turning to me and saying, "Oh, my publisher wouldn't be interested in a debut author," and pivoted, and she walked away. And I thought, well, I'm glad I haven't bought any of your books because I never will. But I think most authors are anxious to help one another. If I help you find a book awards program or a literary agent or a publisher, it in no way diminishes my success. So most writing conferences, everyone is so happy to say, "Oh, this is a great editor. You will love this. If you need a developmental edit, if you need a good copy editor or a line editor, seek this person out. If you're looking for a book awards program, I've heard this is wonderful, or I've entered it." Those are your gatekeepers. Those are the people who can help you not be a victim of something not legitimate. So I encourage, but I think most authors are not particularly extroverted. We tend to be more introverted. And so it takes a step or two to venture out of our comfort zone. But I have walked into writers' conferences and not known a soul and left with lots of business cards and lots of information and lots of suggestions. So it's not as scary as it starts out. I encourage you to go.
Absolutely. We talk about the importance of networking for authors very often, because I agree, it is a very solitary pursuit. You're alone most of the time, and making those connections is so important when you're self-publishing, because you don't have that network that a traditional publisher would have given you. You know, all the best practices they have, the connections they have to designers and editors, and you know, where they're doing so many things for you. You have to do all of that yourself, and it's very difficult to do that if you are working in a vacuum. So networking is so important. So I completely agree with that.
There are two these days. It's I think we've expanded to beyond two realms: self-publishing and traditional publishing. Now there's hybrid publishing, where you can go to someone, and if you need editing, if you need a cover design, if you need help with marketing, they will individually price out services for you, which is great. And then there's small presses that do it. I'm not sure if they require a bit of an advance from the author. I did feel better when I learned that even debut authors that HarperCollins or Random House, let's go with the big guys, take on, if you're not John Grisham, you market your own book. They do not invest a huge budget in debut authors or unknown authors until you have a track record. And I'm always encouraged by the notion that John Grisham used to sell books out of the trunk of his car. You too can be successful. But I digress. Book awards are part of marketing that are something the author can do on your own for minimal investment. There are many Facebook ads can be outrageous. I get emails all the time from companies that for large fees guarantee you so many reviews in different publications. I did read somewhere that one author spent $14,000 on marketing in order to make it on the New York Times bestseller list. Very few authors have that kind of a marketing budget.
Absolutely. And you know, that it's so interesting you mentioned that. That is something that that can be purchased. I mean, there
was a big story. There was a big name that was caught sort of doing that.
Yes.
Buying
Well, there are
their own
certain
books and getting their name up there. Yeah.
Am I correct in remembering that the New York Times pulls certain bookstores? They're not,
Yes.
they're not going to do my downtown little bookstore here. So if you go to the bookstores that you know the New York Times pulls and you buy countless copies of the book that you want to promote, then you will up the sales figures that can make it easier. But then you'll have a garage full of cartons of your book. But I don't know if that's worth it, but I do know that most authors don't write with a huge marketing budget. And that's why so many new books and new authors, they make sales for the first month or 2 or 6, and then they just kind of languish. The sales stop because they don't have the ability to continue marketing on and on.
And it kind of gets more difficult once you've got like the fresh, shiny new book smell has worn off.
Yes, because there are new authors with newer books and probably in your genre that everybody's interested in trying. I did hear that Book Talk was, and this is before TikTok was potentially going to be shut down by our government, but that was if you had fantasy, romance, young adult, those kinds of genres, that Book Talk was an excellent way to market your manuscript. Not all genres, but those were in particular popular.
Yeah, Book Talk is a tag that you can use in your TikTok videos, and it gets a lot of traction. And TikTok really became a mover and shaker in the industry. You could virtually make your name and your career overnight if you happen to have a video that went viral. One of our very first episodes, we talked about that with an author who put out a TikTok video and basically woke up the next day to hundreds of thousands, not millions of views and movie offers and blah blah blah. When the book had been out for 3 years, nobody cared about it before that. But it blew up. In the U.S. the courts had said that it had to be shut down, and then the next day, yesterday, Trump signed some executive orders putting a stay on that. So right now, Book Talk's still there. Whether it will be in a few months, we'll see. But yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you talk about marketing, often marketing is, I love this word, holistic. And so you could get your book going viral on TikTok, and then everybody goes to your product page on Amazon. And if you also have your book won an award, it's like every single step is an additional thing that's going to convince people to click that buy now button.
It is a validation that what they're buying is worth reading.
Yeah.
Someone else has read it, someone else has judged it, and someone else says, this is good.
And it's interesting. Oh, no, you go ahead, Craig.
Well, I was just going to say, if you have multiple books, you can get multiple different awards too, right? You don't have to just sit back and rest on your laurels, and you don't have to necessarily get the same award for multiple books. You can branch out, which might be a good strategy, especially if they're giving you publicity on their website to a whole different audience. The first book, you get some publicity from the one award site, the next one you get some from the other, and then hopefully those audiences do like your book. They go and they look up your next book, and that's why it becomes easier and easier to market books with the bigger and bigger catalog.
Yes, I'm not sure if you can hopscotch around genres when you do that. People who write series, that sells well. Sometimes the first or second book doesn't, and then they write a third, and the back catalog just starts to fly once one in the series is popular. Right. I don't know if you wrote romance and then you switch to crime.
No, I'm just saying, not switching to different types of awards, but different sites that give awards for your genre, right? There's more than one.
Yes.
If you run romance, there's tons of different romance awards you could get. You don't have to always say, okay, I won this one last year, so I should only stick to this one. Just branch out, and you can have multiple awards on a single book too, and I'm sure that helps too. If if your whole cover is littered with different awards you've won.
Yeah, no, some awards programs, I know Florida authors and publishers, if you've submitted a book in the past, you can't resubmit it the next year because you think it deserved an award and the judges didn't. And so you're just going to keep submitting it until somebody says, oh, give it to them. We can't read this again.
Well, that brings up a point of, do they only look at, or do they maybe favor books that are recently published, or can you submit a book that is multiple years old, assuming you haven't been submitting it constantly?
Usually the awards programs do concentrate on current new publications. Ours this year for 2025, the book has to be published either in 2023, 2024, or 2025. If you have previously published a book, but you are substantially rewriting it or doing massive rewrites, and it's a second edition or something, then it's eligible. But there have to be substantial changes made to an older publication in order to make it eligible for the latest book awards. Or Hemingway would still be submitting. You know what I mean? His estate would be putting.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
It's designed to, I think, recognize new books, new authors whose names we don't recognize. I would be surprised if John Grisham or James Patterson still submitted to book awards program. I don't think they need to. I think their books just get up and walk off the shelves anyway. So they're not looking for additional recognition, I think.
Yeah,
they
you
get
hit
big
a
checks.
level, and you have your fan base is all you really need.
Yes.
Yeah, the word of mouth that you'll get from all your fans is going to do better than any marketing you need to do, right?
Now, I was going to ask, I mean, you've actually made a very good case for why you should be researching and entering awards anyway. I mean, even just from the networking connections and things like that. But let's imagine that you're an author, you have a limited advertising and marketing budget. There definitely seems to be some value in submitting your book for awards. But how likely are you to win? I mean, there must be many other authors also entering, and then if you've got a limited budget, like, is this an effective use of your advertising and marketing budget? What things should you think of when you're researching and deciding whether or not to enter an award or not?
I don't know that book awards programs publicize. I don't think we do how many submissions they actually receive. So it would be difficult to know, if, say, the Independent Book Publishers Association in California, I might assume, would get a lot for their, because it's California, because they encompass independent publishers throughout the country. So you wouldn't have any way of really knowing how much competition you were up against. I would look at the categories. If I were looking at a book awards program, I would, let's say I wrote a business how-to book, or even an inspirational, like there's usually a religion/inspiration category. I would look to see how narrow the categories are in that, as opposed to fiction. Or nonfiction. Boy, that's a broad one. If those are the categories, you can bet there's a lot of people that are entering their book in those big umbrella categories. But if they get kind of narrow, I think your chances are better if they have a lot of categories. That means, some people, even as a judge for the Florida authors and publishers, they'll enter it in the fiction category, they'll enter it in the romance or in the mystery. They're hedging their bets, so they might enter it in 3 categories. And then the cover design. What the heck? Let's do it all. And you can, in many awards, you can enter it in multiple categories if you believe that your book it's a valid entry in that category. You can't just Christmas tree it and assume that some judge will be asleep at the wheel and say, but I would look really closely at the categories, and the more that they have, I think maybe the greater chances that you have to have your book stand out, because if it's in a narrow category, it's not just, well, it's fiction or children's book. Oh, okay, that covers a lot of age groups, from picture books to early learning to elementary, like, ages 4 to 8, or so. If they narrow it more, I think your chances are better.
I think that mirrors the strategy that authors have when they're trying to get a ranking in the Amazon category system. It's easier to rank when you've filled out your niche, and it's not, ranking in romance is a lot easier than ranking in historical romance or in historical Viking romance. As you get more and more niche, and there is a category for that, it's going to get easier and easier to get to the top of their top 100, which gives you that visibility. So it sounds like with book awards, it's sort of a similar thing.
I was going to say, and Renee, you can shoot me down if this isn't actually accurate, but one of my first jobs ever was working for a radio station, and it was a small local radio station for a city of like 60,000 people. And we would have competitions every single day. And all of my friends were like, oh, we never bother entering the competition because we're never going to win. And I'm like, literally 5 people enter the competition every day. It's actually a surprisingly small number of people who just decide to pick up the phone and call to get free tickets to something. And I don't think it's going to be that small, but I imagine the competition when you enter awards is probably less stiff than you might think, especially for the smaller awards and the more niche awards. And so, you've got a 1 in 100 chance maybe of winning, as opposed to your 1 in 16 million if you buy a lottery ticket.
I agree. I mean, if we go back to the estimates that between 2 and 4 million books are written every year, I can tell you the book awards program that I've judged has nowhere near that number of entries. So I think, candidly, I would not have sought out, as a debut author, I would not have sought out a book awards program because I just didn't know enough about it. I didn't know I should. And I felt very timid, I guess. Even the night of the awards, and they notified the winners that you have won something, so that we would come to the awards dinner. Otherwise, I would have been home in bed. And they called out the bronze medal. And I thought, oh, that's nice. Oh, silver, that's good. Not the third. And they called out the silver medal. And all I could think of in my seat at the table was, oh, shoot, I've come all this way. Oh God, I still didn't think I won a gold medal. Still thought there's a mistake, and I've just paid $75 for an awards dinner, and I'm going to really slink out of here under the table. So when they called my name, I was still, really? Career journalist, knows how to spell, punctuate, I still didn't. I thought, there's a mistake. I'm embarrassed. Let me get out of here quietly so that nobody knows that I was here. So I don't think most authors enter a book awards competition with full confidence that their work merits it. My experience is, shockingly, it does. So do it.
That's another very good point. I mean, if you're one of these people who thinks, oh, I don't want to enter my book for this award because I don't think it's good enough to win. It's like, well, maybe you want to look at your book critically, because if it's not good enough to have a good shot of winning an award, you've got to also think maybe it's not good enough to be out there for the public yet. Yeah. Maybe it's time to look at it and see what it is that you think would make it fall short of being able to win an award, in which case maybe you want to fix that, because it will make all the difference between whether or not customers want to buy it. And that's really the award that every writer is secretly going for.
Yeah, I once judged a book. I think I didn't make it through the first paragraph, and I caught typos, and I thought, okay, this isn't worth my time. If if I'm catching mistakes in the first chapter, this is not worthy of a medal, and it moved on. So I would say, yes, this is when professional editing and checking and double checking and read it again, just make sure. It's not a good idea to have friends or family read your book, because they love you and they don't want to hurt your feelings, and they're not going to be as critical as a beta reader or someone that you're paying for their expertise and a really good critique. So before you submit it to a book awards, it's good to have some outside source read it and give you a very impartial, if you start out in first person and then you move to third person, omniscient, and you're all over someone will say, maybe rewrite this before. Although most book award programs, I believe, do give feedback to the author. They're not going to tell you anything heinous, so don't be afraid. But they will say, point of view changes, or a lot of adverbs here, or if your book doesn't win an award, you usually do get from the judges constructive feedback on why.
And that's really interesting, actually, when you think if that's the case, the entry fee for entering an awards, that might even justify it. I mean, imagine how much you pay to an actual editor to read your book and review your book and give you some feedback and stuff like that. So I don't know. There we go. You might have just sold me on this.
Yeah. Well, I paid several $100s to somebody to say, stop switching point of view on one of my books. So
that was there was a reason for that as an example, right? But I think the other thing is, even if you know that your book, or let's say even if other people have told you your book is good, a lot of authors suffer from imposter syndrome, or they're maybe not thinking that's good enough to send to an award program. But to talk briefly about the numbers, because we were asking about that, and I looked it up quickly over here on Wikipedia, just as an example. The Independent Publisher Book Awards, which are called the IP Awards, in 2020, they had over 3,000 books entered into their award program, and 422 medals were awarded. So that's not a bad percentage when you think about it. If you're thinking you have no shot, that's almost like 1 in 6 or something like that, right? Or 1 in 7. So, and then for cost, that one in 2020 was $85, and like you said, if you submitted early, you got a $25 discount. So I think if authors are interested in this, the prices, I'm sure they've probably gone up since then, but probably not significantly. So I think it's probably worth your time and investment to try it out a few times and just give it a shot.
Sure. I think you get a lot of bounce for your buck for book awards. And most of the award, at least the ones I'm familiar with, has often a catalog. They list there's Florida Authors and Publishers has a bookstore on our website. The award-winning books are listed for sale there. So anyone visiting the website can look, see who's a medalist, buy the book. I think it links directly to Amazon. You get additional marketing value from what you do, from what you self-promote by saying, this is an award-winning book with your gold medal sticker or your silver medal sticker. They will do some marketing for you too. So if you win, whether it's bronze, silver, or gold, and you think even at a max, an $85 investment, you couldn't buy as much free press as you would get from a book awards program.
And one thing I think that is very important is it's not like the lottery, is it? Craig, you just said, 1 in 7 chance of winning. It's not like you're playing poker or you're playing craps where it's a random thing. If you come in with a really, really solid, good book, then you stand a better chance than you would otherwise. So there's something to it. And, as a writer, I know that my books haven't reached a certain level of success because they must be good enough for me to have sold 70,000 copies of them. So you think that there are writers out there whose books, if they're really good, then they do stand a better than average chance of winning these awards.
They do. I think most authors of books view their books as almost like offspring. The first gentleman that I hired to do his company at one point was called Express Edit. So for $100, he'd do like the first chapter, just to give you an idea of how you were doing. And his first question to me was, how do you take criticism? I said, I'm a newspaper reporter. I had 3 editors on my back before anything I wrote saw the light of day in newsprint. So I'm okay. I'm fine. And he had been working with an author, and every time he tried to delete something or rework something, he said it was like I was killing her children. She was just so upset over it. I think, try 1, 2, 3 book award programs, enter your book if it's new. Different programs, different judges. I think even if it's $100 or less to enter, you get feedback, and there's a really good chance you're going to win something in one of them.
Well, that's, we are unfortunately reaching the top of the hour, but that's actually like the perfect, happy, hopeful story to end that on. Gosh, this has been I think Craig and I were both taking notes while we were listening to you, because I think this is a real eye-opener of an opportunity for writers out there. So thank you so much for sharing this. Before I ask you where people can find out more about you and what you do and where you'd like to point people, Craig, do you have any final questions for Renee?
No, other than, well, actually I did. I thought of one thing where you'd mentioned, when you put this, the sticker, the gold or the silver, do the book awards typically give you the graphics that you would then use to put on your cover, on your website, or you just, you have to make something up yourself?
No, they do provide. We provide, what do you call it when it's online? That you can add on.
Oh, yeah, like an image file.
The image, but also we provide stickers so that if you have a hard copy of a book and you want to put a sticker on the front of the ones that you already have, if you're doing a book signing, say, you have like little adhesive ones, and then you have one that you can do on your online book covers as well. Because most book awards, the logo is proprietary. I mean, they own that. Right. Book award logo, so they have to provide it to you, and they do that at no cost.
Right. Perfect.
Well, that is wonderful. So Renee, where can people find out more about you, more about what you do, more about the association that you're now former president of?
Well, they could go to www.myfapa.org, which is the Florida Authors and Publishers Association website. I am also on Facebook, Renee Garrison author. I'm on Instagram as Renee Writes, WRITES, but I'm not a faithful Instagrammer. And I have a website, reneegarrison.com. How boring is that? That is like...
Not boring at all. There we go. Well, we will make sure to pop a link down below in the description. So if you are interested in finding out more about Renee, then scroll down there, click on that link and go straight to her website. But while you're there, while you're scrolling down there, you'll see that big empty comment section. So please do leave Renee a comment and let her know how much you've appreciated everything that she has shared with us today, because I think there's an awful lot that writers can take away from this conversation. And of course, there is also that like button that you can share this with your friends and other fellow writers. There's that subscribe button if you haven't already, and of course a little bell icon. You click on that and you'll get notified every time there is a new episode of Fully Booked. And of course we'll be back with a brand new episode of Fully Booked next week. So until then, cheerio, and thank you very much, Renee.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.